got a panel. We have got a distinguished panel. I will just introduce the panel by name, and then it will be open for anyone to make any comment. So I will introduce the panel later. This is our first program for the new charity that we have formed, Kent Brain Injury Foundation, which will be working for the well-being for social care and healthcare in Bangladesh mainly.
They can see me, but I don't see myself.
Okay. Whoever is not speaking, please, if you can keep this mute. Yeah. So we'll start the program if Honorable Minister could give us the permission to start. Dr. Shamsul Alam. Oh, you are mute.
Thank you very much. Please carry on. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Right. So our first keynote presentation is Professor Irasima Leroy. She's a big leader in dementia field from a lot of identities. The Global Health Brain Health Institute, Trinity College Dublin. She's one of the leaders there. She's also a consultant neuropsychiatrist from Manchester. But more important identity is she's leading the SenseCog study for dementia in Europe and in Bangladesh. So that project, we have got some publications. So I would request Professor Irasima Leroy to do her presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sakel, and welcome everybody. It's lovely that you're all here, and happy World Alzheimer's Day. I'll just check. Mo, please feel free to cut me off if I go too long, because I think I've got only a few minutes, but lots of slides as always. So I'll move through these very quickly. Let me just share my screen here. Everybody's seeing that? Happy with that? Okay. Super. So the topic today that I'm going to present is ears, eyes, and mind, exploring sensory cognitive health in older people. And why I think this is incredibly important to talk about on World Alzheimer's Day, because thinking about hearing and vision impairment in people with dementia is potentially a low-cost, fairly easy, pragmatic intervention to support quality of life in people with dementia. And it's something that is hugely neglected, certainly in Bangladesh and other South Asian countries, but also in the UK and Ireland, where I'm living now. So the overlap between visual impairment, hearing impairment, and cognitive impairment, of course, is significant and results in what we call a crucible of multimorbidity. In other words, if you put these things together, your cognitive impairment and your dementia will be worse. If you cannot see, if you cannot hear, and likewise, if you have cognitive difficulties, your vision and your hearing will be worse. So all of these things play out together. We know that if you have sensory impairment in the context of dementia, your cognitive and functional decline will be more rapid. Challenging behaviors requiring chemical restraints will be increased. There's greater dependency, higher risk of falls, greater isolation and loneliness, higher communication barriers, high rates of carer burnout, and the list goes on. In other words, all outcomes can be worse. But the challenge, of course, is that sensory and cognitive problems look very similar. In other words, sometimes we don't know whether a person has memory or cognitive difficulties or whether they've got hearing and visioning problems, because they both present with social isolation, decreased understanding, repeating questions, memory problems, stereotypical word use, difficulty following conversations, and so on. So this is a snapshot from one of our UK memory clinics. In fact, in Manchester, we did this a couple of years ago, and it mimicked results from a similar audit that was done in the same clinic 20 years before. And what it shows that of people attending the memory clinic, almost 80% of people have hearing impairment that's under-identified. And for those that even have identified hearing problems, it's generally unaddressed. In other words, pretty well most people with dementia are walking around with unaddressed hearing problems. And this hearing loss pertains to peripheral hearing impairment, in other words, from the outer ear to the cranial nerve 8, but as also includes central auditory dysfunction, the cochlear nucleus to the auditory cortex in the cerebrum. In other words, we've got multiple factors that feed into this complexity. I'll draw your attention to a very nice review undertaken by my colleague at the Global Brain Health Institute, Dr. David Loffrey. He did a very nice meta-analysis of 36 studies of cognition and pure tone audiometry, which were mostly cross-sectional. And why this review was interesting was because it included only papers that had objective measures of hearing loss. And it showed a significant association between hearing loss and cognitive impairment, hearing loss and cognitive performance, and hearing loss and dementia. So the evidence and the link is strong. We know also that looking at people's performance on cognitive tests, a simple test like the Mini-Mental, if hearing impairment is present, their performance will be worse. So for example, we can see the impact of hearing impairment that's mild, moderate, and severe, showing the decrease in cognitive scores. What about vision? A very important study that came out a few years ago, led by Michael Bowen from the College of Optometrists, was the PROVIDE study, looking at the prevalence of visual impairment in dementia in the UK across multiple settings, clinical settings, home-based settings, and care home settings. And what it found is that, like hearing impairment, vision problems are hugely under-identified in people living with dementia. And why this is important, because of those who had under-identified vision problems, more than 50% of those could be corrected with, sorry, just struggling to see my slide here with all these Zoom taskbars, there we go. 50% of those with undetected visual impairment were correctable with lenses. So a simple, acceptable, low-cost intervention could make a big difference in these people's lives. And of the people whose vision impairment was not correctable by spectacles, bear with me, the slides are stuck here we go. Almost 50% could be remedied by cataract surgery. And this is a big issue in the UK because there are long waiting lists for cataract surgery, and in many cases it's not identified as being an urgent issue. And yet if it can impact on the life of a person with dementia, it needs to be considered carefully. So I'll just now tell you a few things that we found, findings from our SenseCog program, which is an EU-funded study that's been going for 5 years. We'll be concluding this at the beginning of next year. And this was a multifaceted study looking at hearing and vision in people with dementia. One of the important findings that we came up with looking at epidemiological data from multiple different longitudinal studies of aging, like ELSA, the English Longitudinal Study of Aging, showed that the trajectory of cognitive decline with aging, which is the black line here, becomes significantly sharper for people with hearing impairment. And that's mimicked across different data sets. What about vision? The same pattern emerges. This is the expected trajectory of cognitive decline with aging. If you have vision impairment, that trajectory accelerates. And again, we see this in a metadata set of share across European data sets, as well as the American data set. Consistent findings throughout. What about if you have hearing and vision impairment? Now that's that red line. So here's the black line is your expected trajectory of cognitive decline with aging. The blue line is having single sensory impairment. The red line is dual sensory impairment, which of course is the majority of people. And there you get an additive effect and your trajectory is even faster. Again, supporting this notion that we need to think very carefully about hearing and vision impairment in the context of cognitive decline. What about hearing loss and dementia risk? So there's a number of studies that have looked at this. And this one particular one I'll highlight is a study from Taiwan, from the National Health Insurance Research Database, looking at over 16,000 people and reporting hearing loss at least 1 year after the report. And what we can see here is that we see a significant increase in the risk of dementia with hearing loss. So here we can see the risk, the cumulative incidence of dementia in those with hearing loss compared to those without hearing loss. For those that want to look at this topic in more detail, I'll refer you to this very nice review from 2021, so hot off the press, looking at sensory impairment and cognitive decline, a review from a population-based perspective. So the question is, how bad must your hearing be to make an impact on cognitive and mental health outcomes? Well, a number of studies have looked at this. Now, hearing loss can be crudely defined as mild, moderate, and severe, although more recent definitions are more subtle than that. But it shows that the association with dementia begins in the mild hearing loss stage. When you're mild, your risk is two times higher. When your hearing loss is moderate, it's 3 times. If you've got severe hearing loss, your risk of dementia is 5 times more likely. If people could mute their microphones, that would be great. Thanks very much. Bear with me, a little bit stuck slides here. There we go. So an important question, is there a window of vulnerability for hearing impairment to impact on cognition? Well, a number of lines of evidence have suggested that midlife is the highest risk point. So that's most of us on this call. We're at midlife. And if we have hearing impairment, that increases our risk of subsequent dementia. And of course, many of you will now be aware of the Lancet Commission on Dementia Prevention, led by Jill Livingston and colleagues, first in 2017 and now in 2020, where 40% of dementia can be accountable due to 12 risk factors, which potentially, if we reverse those, we can get rid of 40% of dementias. And for middle and lower income countries, this proportion is even higher. So those 12 risk factors include low education below the age of 12, midlife hypertension, obesity, and diabetes, alcohol use, traumatic brain injury, late life depression, physical inactivity, smoking, air quality, social isolation accounting for 3.5% of the model, and the topic of today, hearing loss, accounting for 8% of this model, the most important potentially reversible risk factor that feeds into increased risk for dementia. And this is midlife hearing loss. So again, it's important to keep this in mind and think about this in terms of our people, of our patients and people living in the community even before they develop dementia. So does improving sensory function help cognition? Well, there's a number of lines of evidence supporting this. We're still waiting to get definitive RCTs to verify the answer to this question, but we can look at this using retrospective data. And this is what we did in the SenseCog program as well. We looked at whether hearing aid use is associated with any alteration in the rate of cognitive decline. We did this using US data from the Health and Retirement Study, HRS. And what we did is we normalized, or we created a knot in the data at the point at which people in the data set were hearing aid recipients. We looked at their cognitive decline before receiving the hearing aid, and we looked at it after receiving the hearing aid. And what we saw was a significant attenuation of decline, suggesting that getting the hearing aid potentially can slow down that decline in cognition. However, one of the difficulties is that retrospectively, of course, we don't know whether somebody received a hearing aid, whether they actually used it. So that's a bit of a limitation in this kind of study design. So the way to overcome it and ask a similar question is to look at a different aspect and a different data set, in this case, ELSA, or the English Longitudinal Study of Aging, but a similar approach, but using cataract surgery. So here we compared 2 groups, people who received a cataract and looked at cataract surgery, because of course you can't undo the surgery. And we looked at their cognitive decline before and after the surgery, compared to those, a match group, who did not have cataract surgery. And again, what we can see here is in those that received the surgery, slowing down of cognitive impairment, whereas we did not see that in the group that did not have cataract surgery. Again, suggesting that improving your sensory function may actually improve your cognitive ability. So does sensory rehabilitation improve outcomes for people already with dementia? So moving away from the dementia prevention or the cognitive impairment group, people living with dementia, can we make life better for them? Now, we don't know the answer to that, but we're actively seeking it. This is through the SenseCog RCT. This is a large-scale definitive study of nearly 300 participants across Europe in 7 different centers, multiple countries, to look at whether improving hearing and vision helps outcomes, particularly quality of life. We are nearly finished the study. We've been going for 4 years, and we will have the results in January of next year. So, what does the intervention look like? The sensory support intervention includes a full hearing and vision assessment for the person living at home with dementia, the provision of glasses and hearing aids as necessary. And a key aspect of this is adherence support. So lots of evidence and clinical experience suggests that it's no point simply giving a hearing aid to an older person with dementia. It simply won't be used. So a very important part of the intervention is putting in place a sensory support therapist to aid the use and the uptake of sensory aids, such as hearing aids and glasses. And that we think will be the key difference. We also look at the sensory environment, looking at the acoustics, lighting, hearing in the home. We look at communication training with the carer. And because of the very close link with social isolation and the importance of social isolation and cognitive impairment, we work on social networking as well. The implementation is that the participants get weekly visits from the sensory therapist over 12 weeks. And of course, we support the care partner to support the person with dementia. Now, we're doing this in Europe, but as Dr. Sakel mentioned, we are doing this in South Asia as well. And why this is important? Because we see this as a potentially interesting, important, pragmatic, low-cost intervention for people living with dementia in the context of not having a disease-modifying therapy that is affordable and appropriate in such a context. So this is the SenseCog Asia program, and we've been doing this because, of course, 66% of the world's, more than 66% of the world's 50 million people with dementia live in lower and middle income countries like Bangladesh. So this is not an unimportant problem. Stigma is high and lack of understanding is very high. And of course, the brain health challenges in South Asia are significant. So if we go through that list of potentially reversible factors and dementia prevention, many things are on the list. For example, high rates of high cholesterol, hypertension, and diabetes, air quality problems, security problems, traumatic brain injury. Here you can see people, a whole family on a motorbike without appropriate head protection. So it's undertaking the study in Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. And so far we have some very nice qualitative findings. Following the intervention, we see improved functional ability, and I won't read these quotes in the interest of time, but we've also had good acceptability of the intervention. We've had increased knowledge and awareness about dementia and also the links between sensory impairment and dementia. We've had improved socialization, increased self-efficacy, and decreased care partner burden. These are all the important outcomes that we are aiming for. So I'm just going to end now by drawing your attention to the guidelines which we've recently published. So this came out in June 2021, so fairly recent. And these are the international practice recommendations for the recognition and management of hearing vision impairment in people with dementia. And I think that can provide some very helpful, pragmatic support ideas for trying to implement this in clinical settings as well as social care settings. And I'll finish there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ira Narasimha Roy, for a comprehensive presentation. And it becomes very clear there are a lot of things that can be done, should be done in Bangladesh as well. If there is any burning question, the question can come now, or you can put the questions in the chat and we can come to the Q question and answer soon. If I could set the context now. So Ira, you were staying with us. There will be some questions for you. Yeah.
I'll be able to stay for a few minutes, Mo. At 4:30, I'm afraid I've got to leave. But I think it's a great meeting and I hope you're all going to enjoy it. But I'll stay on for the next few minutes.
All right, okay. So in that case, if there is any specific question for Professor Ira, you could ask now. Or you can type your questions.
I can take them in the chat while the next presentation is going on, no problem at all.
All right, okay. So we are trying to get a video on. Before that, I could say a little bit about the context. You can see my slides now. Okay, so I just want to take a few minutes to outline a few things that recent WHO report from United Nations about dementia action plan, and it outlined where things are going. So 2017 to 2025 is the report. it's very important for us to realize that I hear whenever I'm in Dhaka that dementia, this kind of condition is a European American disease. It's not in Bangladesh. Even the awareness is not there. The reality is actually the opposite. So you can see in 2019, about 55 million patients were diagnosed. And so this green is high income countries, and this yellow is middle income, upper middle income, and orange is low middle income. So this is sort of middle income. So you can see by 2030, middle income countries like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, they will already have more than 50% of the patient. And if you go to 2015, vast majority of the patients are actually middle income countries. So it is not a European or illness of the white people, Caucasian people. It is actually happening within our country, and there needs to be a national preparedness. The second point is, these are the 7 action plan that the report has highlighted. That what is needed is a national level policy response. You heard air pollution, simple interventions like hearing aid, cataract, those sort of things have a significant impact in prevention of dementia, as well as improving the quality of life of patients and their families. There is a need for awareness and various risk reduction campaign. So Professor Ira has outlined the 12 things that can be done. And there is a reason why in Europe, certainly in England, the dementia is falling for the last few years, whereas it is increasing in other countries. So those campaigns needs to be considered in countries like Bangladesh as well. Now in Great Britain, our Prime Minister actually stimulated the program, and it's called Prime Minister's Challenge. Maybe that kind of thing needs to happen in Southeast Asia as well. The third action plan is needs to be a better diagnosis, treatment, and care, not just pursuing cure. In terms of diagnosis, there is still problem in Bangladesh. I know a lot of people still think that it's sort of a curse or insanity, that kind of thing. It's not, or sort of ghost has taken over. It's actually a medical condition, a brain failure. That's the way it has to be considered. There needs to be support for carer. It's mainly the women who are the carer, and they need to be supported. And that support also in rural and remote areas needs to be considered. There needs to be clear and improved health information system. More investment should come in research and innovation. And again, WHO identified that needs to happen within the context of low and middle income countries like Bangladesh, as Professor Ira has supported doing it in Bangladesh. And very importantly, a rights-based approach, that all decisions planning needs to involve people with dementia. Yeah, so that it's sort of a human rights approach. So these 7 action plan that the WHO has come up with, and what is needed is various charities, dementia-related charities like Sir William Beveridge Foundation and others needs to campaign how we can persuade the policy makers to address this. So I will stop there, and if there is any question, I will answer that. By then, I don't know whether Karen managed to connect. Yep.
So yes, I have downloaded Professor Wilkinson's video. So I think.
Can you share screen?
Would you like me to try?
Please try that. Yeah.
Okay. Can you give me sharing screen facility?
Amran.
Karen, you can share screen anytime. Just share screen, and just there is a small box that
I can see the share.
computer
If I go
audio.
there, yeah.
You have to share your computer audio also.
So although
So there is a small box Put the tick on it and share it. No
organized
problem.
by Kent Brain Injury Foundation. There are a lot of
So,
other
so if I go to share my screen,
joined,
okay.
because dementia is something which has touched or is going to touch every family, not just in UK, also in Bangladesh. So whilst Karen is trying
Oh,
to
and I have to share the sound as well. Yeah.
IT, yeah. So just two
Yeah,
more
one second.
presentation, and then we'll get into discussion. Yeah, the video.
Okay. So
Professor Wilson is
I'm going to select the video
advisor,
there.
national advisor of Kent Brain Injury Foundation. He's a researcher and professor of neuropsychology in University of Kent, and he's very keen to support Bangladeshi endeavors.
Hello, my name is Mr. David Wilkinson. Carol has kindly asked me to say a few words on the work that he and I are doing to develop a method of non-invasive neuromodulation for dementia. Our work focuses on a particular form of non-invasive stimulation that targets the vestibular organs of the inner ear. Interest in non-invasive technology is premised on a failure for drugs to reverse or arrest dementia and on the cost and complication of more invasive forms of neuromodulation. Now, the vestibular system detects the movement and orientation of the head, which of course tells us which way is up, whether we're moving, if so, in what direction and at what speed, which makes it very important for balance and gait, remaining steady on our feet. But in fact, the vestibular system is also very important, it turns out, for overall brain health. We know this because people who suffer injury or disease to their vestibular system in their inner ear report a whole range of neuropsychiatric symptoms, cognitive symptoms affecting memory, and an unusual level of depression and anxiety. And in fact, when one looks at the projections of the vestibular pathways from the vestibular brainstem nuclei, they run far and wide across the brain to many cortical and subcortical areas, which raises a question as to whether these diverse and rich pathways can be harnessed therapeutically. Is it possible to gently stimulate these pathways and modulate activity in those brain areas that they connect to? Well, we know we can stimulate the pathways quite easily using electrical or thermal waveforms. The question is whether this has therapeutic effect. And over the last decade or so, my group has been working with a range of neurological populations in conjunction with Dr. Sakal and his ward, his service. Initially, we found compelling improvements in people with stroke, in their cognition and their psychiatric status, following the application of either thermal or electric current to the vestibular nerve, which runs just behind the ear, turn stimulates those dense pathways throughout the brain. We moved on to minimally conscious state and again saw some transition from involuntary to voluntary behavior, which was very compelling. And more recently, and maybe of most relevance, conducted an FDA-sponsored trial to look at Parkinson's disease. And we found a very wide level of improvement in both motor and non-motor symptoms in Parkinson's. The improvements endured for a number of months after stimulation, which was applied twice a day for 2 months. And so really compelling. And I guess what was most important concerning today was that those who scored low on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, who showed evidence of mild cognitive impairment, showed as much improvement of those as those who were higher functioning. So this gave an indication that maybe people with dementia or severe cognitive deficit might benefit. So in a proof of concept study, which we just completed, we tested whether 6 people with Alzheimer's might benefit from vestibular stimulation as well. All had mild cognitive impairment, indicated by an average MoCA score of 20. They were all in receipt of stable medication, had the capacity to consent, age 59 to 78. Now, we focused on visual spatial memory as the primary outcome, given that it is so commonly affected in Alzheimer's. And we applied stimulation during the learning phase of a navigational task in which they had to learn the location of a hidden target by exploring a virtual environment. And then after a break, we tested how well they had retained this location information that they'd learned by asking them to find the target once again. Now, we found that 5 of the 6 participants were more accurate after receiving stimulation in the learning phase than those who had received sham stimulation, and they moved much more directly to the target. I should point out here that the stimulation was subsensory, that is, it was so gentle they couldn't feel the stimulation, and so it was very easy to blind. I think what is so encouraging about this preliminary result is that the sample was very heterogeneous, differences in age, time since onset, and in memory impairment. So it's the first evidence that vestibular stimulation may help improve visual short-term memory in Alzheimer's. And as you can imagine, we are now planning a larger trial with a broader range of outcomes. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's session.
Thank you. So whilst Karen, you need to try and connect for your presentation. Apology for the poor IT issues. Essentially, what Professor Wilkinson has is in Canterbury, we have developed a way of safely stimulating the brain by using electricity or thermal current. And that's very useful for stroke and other conditions. But it has been shown to improve Parkinson-related dementia and memory. And in a small sample, already in Alzheimer's disease, some type of memory improves, like spatial navigation. Because in Alzheimer's disease, you may notice that a lot of patients get lost in their own house. So navigation is a critically important part. So we hope that we'll be able to make this available in Bangladesh by next year, assuming COVID will be controlled by then. Karen, are you ready before we ask the chief guest?
Yes.
Okay, so the next speaker is also an international advisor of our Kent Brain Injury Foundation. She's a professor of neurological physiotherapy. She's a visiting professor in Jasur Institute of Science and Technology. She has visited Bangladesh 8-9 times. She loves Bangladesh. She's also advisor for Sir William Beveridge Foundation. And yeah, she loves Bangladesh except the spice in the food. Other than that, on the street. So it is very important. A lot of people ask me whenever I'm in Dhaka that does physiotherapy help in dementia or not? So I think a brief commentary from Karen, and then we'll go to the chief guest. Okay, Karen, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation and opportunity to contribute to such a wonderful event in terms of really helping to understand more about dementia, both in terms of knowledge, raising awareness, and the possible support that is available to people with dementia. Physiotherapy, yes, it does help, absolutely. And I think dementia is one of the greatest health and social care challenges of our time. So this is across the world, including Bangladesh. And we know that it's characterized by what can be progressive impairment cognitively, so areas such as memory, orientation, comprehension, language, judgment, but also physically as well at different stages. So there can be changes in mobility, there can be changes with reduced muscle strength, and there can be changes with balance as well. So sometimes if someone has poor balance, that can place the individual at risk of fall. Rehabilitation interventions are a very important component of the management of people living with dementia. and physiotherapy plays a key role in many aspects of dementia care. So, for example, maintaining mobility, providing mobility aids as appropriate at different stages, perhaps a walking stick if the balance, perhaps a frame, perhaps a wheel frame, looking specifically at the individual in terms of their balance and whether they're at risk of falls, and completing an individual falls risk assessment. And also looking at muscle power in general. So physiotherapists provide exercise programs that help the individual person to improve their muscle power. In the UK, physiotherapists carry quite a significant caseload of patients with dementia. And physiotherapists work with individuals diagnosed with dementia, both in the acute hospital setting, but also in the community. And there is quite little formal undergraduate and postgraduate training available for physiotherapists who are working with patients diagnosed with dementia. So there's quite an urgent need for this to change. The World Health Organization has acknowledged that developing the knowledge and skills of all healthcare professionals who are involved in dementia care should be a priority. In the UK, physiotherapists can undertake quite detailed individual assessments of the individual person, so looking at their activity restrictions and participation limitations that they face. And as I say, one example is poor balance, which is known to increase the risk of falls. And this is known and understood that this can be improved by physiotherapy-led exercise. So exercise can actually help someone to improve their balance, but it can also have a positive impact in terms of the behavioural and psychological symptoms associated with dementia. Physiotherapy plays an important role in promoting and maintaining mobility for people with advanced stage dementia as well. And particularly in the sort of later stages, in the advanced stages, it has a vital role in end-of-life care by maintaining positioning, comfort, seating, and potentially quite painful joint contractures. And we also know that caring for the person with dementia can impact negatively on the health of the people who do the caring. The carers of people with dementia are often have difficulties with their health issues, and this has been seen in research when they're compared to age-matched peers. So physiotherapy can also help in reducing the burden of care by educating carers to encourage as much independence in people living with dementia for longer. So in summary, physiotherapy has an important role to play in relation to specific issues which may arise during the course of the dementia disease process, but also in supporting carers. Thank you.
Thanks, Karan. I mean, I can say from my personal experience, my mother had Alzheimer's dementia, and she had physiotherapy at CRP, which was fantastic. Dr. Saurabh, PhD from CRP, is with us in the panel. I can just quickly identify the panel members whilst our chief guest, then I come to the chief guest. Our panel members who don't have to present anything, they can put questions, answers, and comments. We have Major General MD Fashir Rahman Bhai, who was the recent Director General for Armed Forces Medical Service. He's our Managing Director for our Can Brain Injury Foundation. We have Associate Professor Mashir Rahman Khusru, who is a physical medicine professor from BSMMU. We have Dr. Sohrab Hussain, PhD, who is the Executive Director of CRP. We have Dr. Rahman Jilani, PhD, who is the Executive Director for Sir William Beveridge Foundation. We have Dr. Saeed Nur Alam, who is Director of Kent Brain Injury Foundation. We have Kamrul Hassan, who is also Director of Can Brain Injury Foundation, and runs a charity for cataract and other operations in Rangpur, which Professor Ira, Karen, and we visited. So I would now like to go to our chief guest to kindly say something, and then we'll open for discussion. I should also mention there are other members and advisors from the charities present here. Manjur Ahmed, Mama, Amar Mama Uni, advisor, Chairman Priyolok, Gojra Union Chairman, Dorji Bhai, Uniও আছেন, তো উনিও আমাদের member. From Paris, we have Paris Adda FM, first Bangladeshi Bengali radio station from Paris. So he has joined us from Paris. We have Nasreen Ahmed, who is also a member. And of course, we have Amran Hussain, who is coordinating everything. So I would like to introduce our honorable chief guest and ask him to say something. So this is Mr. Samsul Alam, who was born in Matlab, Chandpur, in the same place where I am born. Not born, my parents are born, yeah. I was born in Dhaka. He is an economist in Bangladesh, and he's the current state minister of planning since last July. He retired as a member and the senior secretary of the Bangladesh Planning Commission. He is also one of the syndicate members of Sylhet Agricultural University. In recognition of his contribution in economics, the government of Bangladesh awarded him the country's second highest civilian award, Ekushe Podok, in 2020. And it is a big honor and privilege that the Honorable Minister is also an advisor for our Can Brain Injury Foundation. It's an honor to have you. If you could say something, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon from Bangladesh. I feel privileged and honored to be with you in this very important webinar. I applaud Can Brain Injury Foundation for organizing this public awareness program on dementia. The foundation's chairman, Dr. Shakel, spoke about the recent UN Action Plan. EU Dimension Academy chairperson, Professor Ira, already outlined how tackling hearing problem can lead to reduced dementia. I enjoyed quite her presentation. I spoke very articulate, in a very articulated way. Though very medical terms she used. I'm an economist, but I understood, I think, almost all what she said. I have been told that Professor Ira and Dr. Shakel has undertaken research on dementia in Bangladesh. I admire other eminent speakers and members of the European Foundation for their valuable time today on a very important health topic. Dementia is the greatest global challenge for health and social care in the 21st century. People living longer than 65 years are mainly affected by it, hence increasing longevity globally as well as in Bangladesh is increasing the incidence of dementia. Obviously, dementia is a clinical condition where progressive shrinkage of brain leads to difficulties in memory, language, and behavior that leads to impairments in basic activities of daily living. That was clearly revealed by Professor Ira. Experienced neurologist is necessary to declare such a devastating, incurable diagnosis. The backbone of treatment is care, not just pursuing care. More focus is on enhancing quality of life and reduction of carer strain. Meticulous care of sleep, nutrition, hydration, depression, agitation, wandering of patients, and to avoid getting lost in the road. Globally, about 47 million people are living with dementia in 2015. And this number is projected to triple by 2050. In high-income countries, the incidence and prevalence of dementia may be declining, probably due to health promotion activities and creating awareness. In 2010, the global cost of dementia care was estimated at $6 billion and estimated to increase to $1 trillion by 2030. The vast majority of that burden will be borne by low and middle income countries like Bangladesh. Increasing awareness and dementia is a step to reduce stigma, improve care for patients and their families, and to make society dementia friendly. In a large number of families, people still have superstition that dementia patients are possessed by ghosts or atonic for past sins or are suffering from psychiatric conditions. I say a few words about Bangladesh. Current estimate of dementia patients in Bangladesh is an underestimate, obviously. The prevalence of dementia, according to data of 1066 research group, is 460,000. In Bangladesh, which was in 2015, the estimate for UK was 856,700 patients, despite having almost 1/3 of the population of Bangladesh. The prediction is that the number of cases in Bangladesh will increase dramatically, whilst prevention strategies in the West will succeed in reducing their incidence. Bangladesh will have some unique challenge in that the public provision of health and social care is awfully underdeveloped. We need national preparedness of the upcoming dementia epidemic on the heel of current epidemic of vascular diseases like heart attack and stroke. Similar to UK initiatives such as Dementia Friends and the Prime Minister's Challenge, as referred to by Dr. Shakil in his introductory speech, we need to raise public awareness program to understand that dementia is a medical condition affecting the brain. And a lot can be done to reduce sufferings and to prevent dementia for people before they get into older age. Suggestions provided by Dr. Shakil, we need to pay heed in tackling dementia. I wish you all a successful program and a research endeavor in Bangladesh. I thank you again for inviting me in this important emerging health issue. Thank you all. I wish you success. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for taking your time and giving us the inspiration. The floor is now open for the panel members to make any comment or any question for anyone.
Yeah. Can I just make a comment, Dr. Shakil? This is super short of.
Yep, sure.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us. I think the program today organized by Kent Brain Injury Foundation, is really a learning opportunity for me, especially. You know, in CRP, Center for the Rehabilitation of the Paralyzed, we treat a lot of elderly patients, including neurological disorders like stroke, brain injury, traumatic injury, and also like Parkinson's and other diseases. But what I can say from my observation or from anecdotal evidence that there is not much works on dementia, so it might be underdiagnosed. But although we are working here, physiotherapist, occupational therapist in a team, and other team member, we have started a mental health daycare center run by occupational therapist here. And Kadari Charitable Foundation is helping us to run this program at CRP centers. And that center is running very well. So I think this opportunity here is a learning for me and for all of us staff here. And then we can work together to improve the awareness for people who are living with dementia. And that's a very important area, I would say, that you have presented today. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Thanks, Surah Hussain Bhai. That's what I was mentioning earlier, that when I admitted my mother to CRP, she actually got the same benefit that she would have got if she was under me, because the principle is the same. But you are absolutely right that there is underdiagnosis in Bangladesh, and also the sufferings are not picked up because social isolation, noise pollution is really horrendous in Bangladesh, and hearing deficit. That's very important. And another important point is in terms of the value, the need for sleep is so important for Alzheimer's patient, dementia patient. They have to really sleep well. Through my work in SWBF and others, I know a lot of dementia patients' sleep is disrupted by their children ringing from Canada, from Australia at middle of the night, just to talk or see my mother or father, by disrupting the sleep of the patient. And the next day the patient will be agitated. Then you call a doctor. The doctor will give strong drugs to suppress the brain, which harms the brain dementia, and this vicious cycle. Whereas the solution is just to let the patient sleep well and have enough water to drink and to be mobile. So thanks for your valuable comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Right, any comments from anyone else? I can see.
Hi, Mr. Shakil. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yep.
Actually, I had a question about the dementia. Is there any data that has been carried out, or we can find any specific data that how many patients actually suffering by dementia in Bangladesh?
No, unfortunately, still it's an estimate how many will be there. So no, there is no clear data yet, but we can say that the number will be much larger than what is there. And more importantly, the number of dementia cases are going up, and it will go up. And that's the irony. In England, Spain, the dementia is coming down. I remember when I was an internee in Dhaka Medical College, we used to be told that heart attack, stroke, these are European illness for white people. And look what has happened now. In England, number of stroke is falling for the last 10 years. Whereas in Bangladesh, stroke and heart attack is going up and up. Same story will happen in dementia as well. That's because there is public awareness program that has been taken in Europe very strongly. And the Prime Minister help in a big way. So yeah, I mean, epidemiologic studies will need to happen. If we can get in touch by email, we can do some work. Professor Ida,
I would definitely. Actually, while I was in UK, I used to work in the Cambian group. So as a support worker, though I'm not in the field of medical, I was still of law. But I had interest to know about this. And I have another question as well. Do you think the diabetic problem would increase the dementia problem?
Oh, yes. The answer is straightforward. Yes. Because most of dementias are actually mixed. It's Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. And diabetes is the worst condition which damages the blood vessels. So yes, answer is straightforward. And in Bangladesh, diabetes is increasing. And it's
increasing.
So that
I think after 30, most of the people have a diabetic now, or they are risk on diabetics after 30. most of them are like already in diabetes. Anyway, thank you so much for the program, and definitely it will increase the awareness inside the government and among the civil society. Thank you so much, and we will definitely expect more program by you, and you will help definitely. Thanks.
Inshallah. Yeah. If I could request General Hashir Rahman and Dr. Jilani to say something, please. You have to unmute. Yeah.
Could you hear me? Dr. Sakhi, could you hear me?
No, sound quality is not good.
Sound quality is not good. However,
yeah, getting better.
Probably sound quality is not more, maybe due to some, the technical reason. However, today's chief guest are very respected honorable ministers and respected distinguished participants, speakers, and guests. Assalamu alaikum, very good evening from Bangladesh. Today, at the outset, I'd like to welcome all of you, including chairman of today's session. He is also the chairman of Kent Brain Injury Foundation, and I being the managing director of the foundation, I welcome everybody. And it is, we are so happy that today's program is so far the first program after our organization having been approved by our government. So this is also first milestone of our the activity. And about the today's program, especially the Alzheimer disease, it is so prevailing disease all over the world, because nobody is immune, can escape from this Alzheimer disease or the dementia. As you are progressing, yes, dementia will be, or Alzheimer disease will be very less if we die at our teenagers. If we touch the 30, if we touch the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and onwards, the Alzheimer disease gets in, and it's really a progressive disease. And it, how it develops, our respective minister so nicely, delivered his speech and could realize us then how it happens. And it is sometimes in many occasions, I ask the audience, yes, do forget? Everybody answers yes. And one of the very important questions, you ask people, ask yourself whether you forget. If your mind tells yes, you forget. If audience tells that yes, we forget, that means you are heading towards the Alzheimer disease or the dementia. And it is so important that you have taken your food. If you are asked, that's sorry, I didn't take my food, and your children or your beloved wife told, yes, just before you took your food. You have to think for Alzheimer disease or dementia. It is the progressive diseases as age progresses, and other things that it is developed due to some other reason. The very name of our foundation, Kent Brain Injury Foundation. That means hurting the body, hurting the organ, hurting the brain. It is very important. How it accident is very important. I being the military man, war is very important. If you see about the First World War or the Second World War, you can realize how dementia developed after war. So it is the war method. It is the accident method. In our country, 2 years before, I presented the papers in Kent University Hospital after the invitation from our today's respected chairman. And I tried to present it how much dementia developed in our Bangladesh Armed Forces personnel, including retired. It was quite substantial number of statistics, and it is also all over the world. So today, I want to compliment in this way that especially underdeveloped country, we are overlooking these disease processes. And in the developed countries, not yet we develop our preventive or the, what would I say? I'm not telling about the curative, but to hold the disease process, just get a halt, to make it slow. Professor Shakil and team, they are working. You know, they have developed the robotic rehabilitation, physical medicine and rehabilitation. So many things that they are doing to get a halt, to decrease the progressive of the disease. Thereby, we can conserve our manpower, we can keep our life quite healthy with the proportion to the progression of the age. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is very important. And for the Bangladesh, I think our respected honorable minister is here. My submission to through our respected minister, we must develop our, the awareness process in the country, the infrastructural systems in our country, and how we can curb it down. The accident is quite alarming in our country. So it's very important. So we can address our dementia and the Alzheimer's disease in general. Thank you very much in this. Again, I welcome from Kent Brain Injury Foundation. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, General Fashik Rahman. So I would, Jilani Bhai wanted to say something, and after that, Kamrul Hassan and Said Nur Alam wanted to say something.
Right. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Everyone, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon from London. It's a pleasure. It's a really great pleasure to see that we have addressed one of the most important side of our life that is coming worldwide, called dementia, which will give us a great suffering, no doubt about it. And I'm very pleased to say that Sir William Beveridge Foundation has done some research in Bangladesh from 2008 and 9, and we had an awareness campaign done, and also 3 days conference in Dhaka in order to create some kind of impetus and the general knowledge, because dementia was always a subject which was professionally known to the professional people. But ordinarily, it was coming luck, and it will create a havoc in many parts of the world, including Bangladesh. My foundation, Sir William Beveridge Foundation, has been very active with research. We have got joint research with Oxford University. We have got done research in the field, and at the same time, international conference inviting South Asian people, and tremendous help given by Professor Shakil. Thank you very much, Shakil Bhai, for that, and also Karen Sonder, so that people at least know what dementia is. Right, now we have come to the stage, and probably we will, with the time passes, we will see that things are improving very fast. I congratulate everyone, and particularly you, Shakil Bhai, for organizing such a brilliant show this afternoon worldwide, and my thanks to everyone involved into that. In case you know it, and you know my patience and everything and my attitude, we are for the causes of the humanity. Sir William Beveridge Foundation will give all sorts of support. As you might know that we are creating a care village in Kapasia, which you have visited, and maybe there are other people with. Inshallah, we will try to tackle the problem, and also the South Asian people we can help with. Thank you very much. And Major General Fasiullah Bhai, we met very briefly in Dhaka, and I congratulate everyone, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thanks, Jilani Bhai, for your kind words. Kamrul Hassan, our director, would like to say something, please.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Oh, sound. Increase the volume.
Then I am just taking off my.
Better now.
Better now?
Yep, better.
And thank you, everyone, and this is today is the day of Alzheimer. And I was thinking about.
Oh, you're muted by mistake.
Yeah. Now it is okay, probably.
Yep, that's better.
Thank you. Today is the Alzheimer's Day, and I was thinking about dementia and Alzheimer's, the relation between dementia and Alzheimer's, and somehow I got an article in a daily newspaper, and thus I came to understand that what is the difference between dementia and the Alzheimer, and actually, the stroke is one of the reasons caused by Alzheimer, and in Bangladesh, I just came to know about dementia only 2 years back. What Jilani Bhai was telling, that the academicians actually know about dementia, but the general mass, we do not know what is dementia and what is the outcome of the dementia and what is the consequence of the dementia. It is very unfamiliar to the country like us, and it is in fact treated as curse, that either the people are insane or it is a curse of the family. It is treated in that way. But it is a rightly, this webinar is very, I think, would be a fruitful one if we just go for a clear awareness program to our public, and that can be done. We have a very we are highly honored to get our Honorable State Minister for Planning as a chief guest, and we can just simply think about that how we can go to the mass people to make them understand what is dementia and how we can screen out the patients, and then we can take them to the doctors, and what would be the mode of our operation in screening out the patients of dementia. That one structure that is right now in our country is prevailing, like the community clinics. It is in the rural areas, we have community clinics and we have community clinic workers as well. So they can be one of the hands to screen the people and to just make some sort of awareness, community awareness, identification, as well as the screening program. We can just make some initiative in particularly using the community clinic staffs. That can be done, I think. And we can have it have an academy as well. Probably Dr. Shakil, you were just telling about the academy, where we can train the physiotherapists and the other particularly who are the persons that will take the initiative in that case. This is my actually point to say about the dementia. That is only for today. Okay, that's all.
Thanks, Kamrul Bhai. That idea about the community clinic is very important, and this is what Jilani Bhai, under Jilani Bhai's leadership, I'm also thinking about in Kapasia. My mama, Manjur mama, is also here. He actually visited that place already. So Jilani Bhai is planning this as a model here, and then we'll see how it has to happen everywhere. And I must also mention that in your charity hospital, eye hospital in Rangpur,
yeah,
it's very important that they are addressing the need for cataract. And as you heard from the presentation, that simple cataract operation has got significant impact in dementia, quality of life, and things. So yeah, is anyone else would like to say something? Is it Hanif Dorji bhai, আপনার হাত নড়লো নাকি? না, হ্যাঁ, সাইদ নুরুল আলম আমাদের আরেকজন ডিরেক্টর ইনজুরি ফাউন্ডেশন।
Yes, thank you. It's a great pleasure for me to hear in this session, present and speaking in this session. Today is World Alzheimer's Day, and Kent Brain Injury Foundation arranged this webinar. I think this is the starting, a very much and wonderful starting. So far I observed we had the keynotes speech, and also our valuable speakers delivered their very much valuable and fruitful presentation. And I think our state minister had given a tremendous and very much inspiring speech. From the deliberation and presentation of Dr. Shakil, I came to know that this disease is going to increase in the developed countries far more than the developed countries and that is underdeveloped countries. We are now in the position, our position is less, but it will increase next 30 or 50 years more than, and I think the double the number, today's number. So this is a very much alarming situation you predicted, and as well you described that sometimes it was a very big problem for the Western countries, heart attack and heart disease, but we are facing this situation now. I think in future we will face the developed countries situation in our country. So you have to take preparation and aware. This is the main thing for today, the World Alzheimer's Day we are observing, to aware people and to educate ourselves. This is a very much important and essential for our personal life also, I think. So this is, it is a very, very fruitful and useful session for today. I would like to convey my thanks and gratitude to our chairman. This is the starting and this is the beginning. And as the other speaker said, that our people should be get aware of this disease, because I also recognize this disease not very far. Only a few years back, we came to know the name of these two diseases. This is Alzheimer's, and which is today's discussion topic was dementia. These terms are very, very new. I think majority people doesn't know what is this. and is it exist physically, practically exist in our country. So we are very much in a condition to aware our people. So I again convey my thanks to Mr. Dr. Shakil for arranging this webinar, and this is only virtual. I think if the COVID condition improves, this type of session should be in physical form, and it will be very fruitful and useful for us. So I am looking for those days, and our initiator, Dr. Shakil, will take initiative on these aspects. And now you are in UK, but as you are in Bangladeshi, you are a Bangladeshi, so I think we will be very much able to use you in Bangladesh. So thank you very much. This is for now.
Thanks for your kind comment. Yes, in Bangladesh, inshallah, next year we'll be doing public events where things will be described in non-medical ways. That kind of program we have here in England, where all the audience is family members. So we have to be able to explain things in simple terms. So that sort of program, inshallah, will happen in Bangladesh. I know that I will get support from Dr. Jilani, SWBF, from CRP, Valerie Taylor, Dr. Sorab. Their heart is filled with compassion for people. So hopefully we will have lots of program. So I would really like to request two other advisors and member whether they would like to make any comment from Paris, Mithul Bhai and Nasreen Ahmed is in Dhaka. If you would like to make any comment, this is your chance. You have to unmute first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shakil. Dr. Shakil, to invite us, we joined with everybody. Thank you also, everybody.
French or Bengali?
Je suis très facile à parler français. আমার ইংলিশ ভালো না।
বাংলায় বলেন।
আমি 35 বছর ধরে ফ্রান্সে বাস করছি। শাকিল ভাই আমার মানে একদিকে ভাই আর একদিকে ফ্রেন্ড। আজকে উনি ইনভাইট করার জন্য অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ এবং আপনাদের অনেকের সাথে পরিচয় হলাম, আপনাদের শুনলাম, অনেক কিছু জানলাম, তো ভালো লাগলো। আর প্যারিস আড্ডা এফএম সম্বন্ধে যদি বলি, এটা একটা কালচারাল রেডিও। আমরা গত বছর উদ্যোগ নিয়েছি প্যারিসে প্রথম এবং এই রেডিও করার জন্য। এটা বাংলাদেশকে আমরা তুলে ধরার জন্য কালচারালি প্যারিস এবং ইউরোপে, এই জন্যই এটার উদ্যোগ। এবং আমরা ডিমেনশিয়া নিয়ে কাজ করব, আমরা আপনাদের সাথে আছি, আমাদের টিম আপনাদের সাথে আছে, একসাথে আমরা কাজ করব ইনশাআল্লাহ।
অনেক ধন্যবাদ, থ্যাংক ইউ। আমাদের কোঅর্ডিনেটর আমরান হোসেন needs to say something, and Nasrin যদি বলতে চায় বলতে পারেন। Amran, you can start your
So thank you so much for giving me to a floor to say something. I just want to applaud one research has been done by Sir William Beveridge Foundation in Kulla Union. It was an epidemiological study of 1,000 people, and 4% found symptoms of dementia. That has been published in Journal of Public Health, as far as I'm concerned. So that we can say that this is the first epidemiological study in Bangladesh about dementia. And second part is Lancet published last year a study that 40% of the dementia cases they can be attributed that they had some physical inactivity. So physically active, being physically active, it is a very important part. And as a health professional, you can promote that thing. And at last, there is evidence from Lancet as well that exercise can decrease the neuropsychiatric symptoms of dementia. So as exercise professionals, I feel proud to make contribution to, and I'm looking forward to make this contribution. Thank you so much for giving me chance.
Thank you, Amran Hussain, for making this very important.
I have a question.
That exertion.
Shakil, can I?
Yeah, sure.
It's a question. Is it one of the reasons that life expectancy has been increased in our country? It is now around 70 years, nearly 70 years. So is it one of the reasons for finding out the dementia patients or increasing rate of dementia patients?
The answer is yes, to some extent, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is different. But if dementia usually affects people who are above 65. So if you are living at the age of 70, you have got slightly increased risk. But that's not the real risk or real reason. Real reason is those 10 things that talked about. Diet has changed. And another is this noise pollution and lack of exercise in middle age is a big reason for this.
I mean, the physical activity.
Yep.
And active aging is very important. Today, WHO published a report that active aging is very important. People should become active after he or she gets retired. So that is also an important point.
And that links to another point, which is in UK, we knew that the commonest morbidity, commonest problem that an elderly person has is loneliness. This is, I'm saying, from 20 years ago, we heard it. Think about Bangladesh today. Loneliness is the big problem for educated older people. So it's not just you are getting older to 70, but you are also getting lonelier. Because now that is a price of progress, you may say, that your children have become well and they have moved on. They are living in Australia or USA. But the fact remains, people are getting.
I can add, I want to add some things, as I mentioned in my, the short form, it is definitely progressing age. Our expectancy is 70 or 70, 50 or 93, dementia percentage will be more. Important is the protein deposition. There are some notorious protein for especially the dementia or Alzheimer disease that is deposited in the, the brain cells or the part of the brain. And so it comes, the food habit. We want to depend on the, the protein. Now, the children are becoming fond of taking on protein. So it is very important factors. And exercise definitely, as age progresses, we usually do not want to jog ourselves, exercise ourselves, important things. That creates the deposition of the protein. That actually harms. So we need to avoid all these things. We have to adopt, the lifestyle change is very important, so that we do not pass the sedentary time. Very important. Idle time. We have to be very cheerful, smiling. Always, smile can make your body chemistry change. Very important thing. There are so many smile club in different countries. In Bangladesh, we haven't yet, but we used to have. So, important that smile can make you disease free from different aspects. Thank you.
Thank you. So, right. So I would like to make one statement, which is that there needs to be a priority on brain health and mental health of older people. That should be our aim and slogan, and we should make this as a priority for any policymakers or any leadership. It doesn't have to be medical field. It can be social field or agriculture field or whatever. That the brain health and mental health of older people, this should be the focus and a priority. And we should all try to do that from our own position. And hopefully next year we'll have a bigger public event. And I thank you all for making our first program of Can Brain Injury Foundation something we have done even during COVID pandemic. And hopefully we'll have a big launching program next month in Dhaka. So I would welcome you all for that foundation's launch event in October in Dhaka. So I would thank you all for joining and spending your time and energy. And I would like to put my gratitude to everyone. Thank you.
Well, thank you as well.
Thank you.
For initiating the whole